With Premier League officiating at an all-time low and the VAR controversy littered throughout the weekend, there was three majorly wrong VAR decisions, two of which the refs have come out and apologised for. On top of that, the weekend was littered with other poor refereeing decisions. We are going to get into all of that today, as well as preview the mega tie coming up this Wednesday as Arsenal take on Man City. Roll that intro. Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. First things first, can you all please hit that subscribe button? Absolutely free to do so for regular football content every single week. Now, we've got to start with the trending topic of today, the weekend, with VAR. Now, we've had debates and rages and anger before at refereeing decisions related to VAR. But this weekend, things went a little bit too far. So to keep you up to speed, if you've been living under a rock, the first one was in the Brighton versus Crystal Palace game. Brighton were disallowed a goal for a very obviously onside goal. The reason being was they drew the lines wrong. Human error. Another one was in the Arsenal versus Brentford game. Brentford were given a goal that was offside, wasn't given. And again, as we know, we'll get on to you, Reese, but that arguably cost Arsenal 2 points in the title race. Another one was the Chelsea versus West Ham game. Souček in, I think, the 82nd minute made a wonderful save. And it wasn't VAR, but even in the Wolves game, a player got a second yellow card and sent off for seemingly nothing. So that's what we're going to get into today. Reese, I guess the most impactful VAR decision was Arsenal arguably losing 2 points due to human error. Let's hear your thoughts on it. Is this going to cost you in the title race? What's your thoughts?
I mean, no, I wouldn't say it would cost us a title race because we weren't going to win the bloody thing in the first place, as I've said 100 times.
Negative.
It's not negative. It's true. Look, if you want to point a game that cost Arsenal any chance of it, it was last week at Everton when they couldn't do it when the pressure was on. Simple as that. This VAR decision, it's human error. I get it. People make mistakes. I'm not really that fussed about it. It's papered over the cracks of what would have probably been a struggling 1-0 win, only to be brought back to reality again, probably against City and most likely against Villa in any case. So it's not really that much of a big issue, in my opinion. It papers over the cracks. So, yeah, look, it sucks, but Arsenal have had how many decisions go their way as well this season? There are times where they probably, where they got goals or got things go their way when they probably shouldn't have done. So it just evens itself out, and I think, yes, we can talk about it, but in my opinion, it papers over like I said, the mentality cracks that this team do not have. They should be looking more at their defeat at Everton last week than the draw at home to Brentford on Saturday.
I think you're being a bit too nice, but well, Jamie, let's for a minute ignore the fact you're a diehard Man City fan. If this was you, and you've got 1-1 draw at home because of a dodgy VAR decision, you'd be absolutely fuming. Come on.
Yeah, all biased aside, it was a perfectly good goal. I don't know why anyone's moaning. It was great. No, I'm joking. Great decision by the ref. No, obviously you've got to be fuming because Reece obviously isn't confident about winning the title, but these added points help you. And City can now go top. Obviously played one more game, but they can go top on Wednesday. Whereas before, if they got them 2 points, that wasn't a possibility. So, and that I think just has a big effect on sort of the whole rest of the season because it's still quite a long way to go. Arsenal got 17 games, City 16. It's a long season left, really. So these little points here and there can impact you and I think what impacts it more was the loss to Everton the week before. If they beat Everton and then they drop points here, I don't think it would be causing as much as a sort of worry around Arsenal about winning, being in the title race, winning the title. Perhaps I think that's it, and they're starting to worry. But talking about the refereeing decisions, there is human error, sort of, but that human error should be coming from the linesman in real time, because the Premier League's at such a fast pace. The referee can make these ones because there's much more reason for human error, because the referee isn't going to see everything. The linesman isn't going to see everything. But when you've got videos that show you the angles you want to see, you can draw lines, it's just not good enough. And everyone slams VAR. It's not VAR that's the problem. Like, that has been brought in to help referees, and they're still making these mistakes. It's just not acceptable, considering how much money is going into the game. The money still gets paid a lot to these refs. You've got big equipment with the VAR coming in. Everything will cost probably in the millions of all them. It's not acceptable, and it's something we shouldn't be talking about constantly. It should be, this is what stops talking about the refs. But it seems to be constantly being brought up again. And it's just the same thing every time. The referees aren't doing their jobs right. So I don't think VAR is the issue, but the refs are.
Yeah. And I think to that point, like, you can accept human error. That's the bottom point. But as you've said, the lino in real time, the Arsenal one's a good example. There was, within that one sort of free kick across, there was sort of 2 or 3 mini phases of play. So like a lino missing that, completely understandable in real time, because there was a lot of moving parts. But the whole point of VAR is to eliminate human error. Like, you'll get some decisions that are subjective, fair enough. That's a little bit more of a 50-50. You can't completely eliminate that out of football. But the whole point of VAR is to eliminate human error. And in 2 massive games in one weekend, human errors occurred. Now, for those of you who don't know, Howard Webb, who I believe is the head of VAR or the head of officials, has come out and publicly apologised to Arsenal and to Brighton. Now, Reece, obviously, an apology doesn't quite equate to 2 points in the league. And personally, I feel like that's more of an insult at this point to even apologise. But I guess on the subject of apology, we'll get on to the Chelsea one now. I say momentum is, it's hard to kill. And when you're in a bad moment, you don't get decisions. Now, the Souček save, I think we have to call it that, because the shot was on target and he saved it with his hand in the box. This was one where on every group chat, there was not a single person actually saying it wasn't a penalty, which, trust me, on WhatsApp groups, that is a big indicator that it's a blatant decision. I don't know what more I can say. Again, human error, the refs, you can't see that in real time. But how on earth is VAR, is any human being looking at that on a camera and going, no, that's not a penalty? So that is just a complete and utter farce. And the fact that we don't, not that it matters, right? An apology means absolutely naffle at this point. But why are Arsenal and Brighton getting an apology and Chelsea aren't? I don't get it.
I think with that one, though, the why they got the apology is because an offside is a definitive answer. You're offside or you're not. Some people can argue. I do agree that it was handball. You should have had a penalty. It's not that I'm playing sort of devil's advocate here. It's a handball. Depends on where you are with your arm positioning and all things like that. So there is sort of an element of going, you know what, his hands were by his chest. It's not a penalty. So it is sort of someone's opinion. That's probably why you've not got the apology. It was a penalty. I'm not going to say anything against it. Although, in the referee's defence, not that he really deserves one, the shot was pathetic going in. Souček didn't need to save it.
Top bins.
It wasn't going to be a goal. But
that's fair point.
I don't know. No, that's the only thing I can see, because it's a matter of opinion. It's not a yes or no. With the Brighton Palace one, it's an offside decision where his leg is either offside or it's not. So that's where I think you get with that.
Yeah.
I think the worst one actually was that Brighton Palace one, because with the Arsenal one, they felt a bit time pressured. They tried to get the game back, keep going. They spent 4 minutes deciding the Brighton Palace disallowed goal, and still got it wrong. Sort of like VAR, people will moan in the grounds going, "Oh, it's taking long. But at least they should come to the right decision. Like, I drawing the wrong lines. Surely, I don't know how many people are in the VAR room. Does anyone know?
I think 4 or 5 normally at least.
So there's more than one person. If I'm drawing a line, there's other people there. I can go, I don't think that line's in the right place. Quite simple. No one else hears you, so it's not like you'll get stick from fans and people like that. No one else hears that conversation that's happening in VAR with just amongst themselves. I think the commentators hear between the ref and VAR, but I don't see how you've got so many people in the same room and then still give that after four minutes. That's just not acceptable, and that is a problem. It's the same one as sort of like, I don't know if it's as bad, but the Wolves Liverpool one where they don't have a camera ready for that position. Decisions like that aren't VAR's fault, and I can only blame the referees, really. And I don't see what much more that can be done to solve it. That's the problem.
What about the I think it's called semi-automated offside lines or whatever it's called, but it was in use at the World Cup. I believe it's in use in the Champions League. Don't quote me on that, but you've got the automated offside lines, which, to my knowledge, has worked pretty well in the World Cup. Maybe that is the solution, bringing that into the Prem. Because that, if constantly, I mean, twice in a weekend is ridiculous. We've seen this happen before. We've seen the Wolves Liverpool one. Surely this drawing of the lines is just ridiculous. You know, it's not arts and crafts class in a school. It is Premier League football, and it needs to be correct. And I personally, for me, that's the only obvious solution. If the refs are going to consistently get it this wrong, and the people in the VAR booths, you need to bring that into the Prem ASAP. And I don't see another way.
But then what about like other decisions then? What about the goal? What's his name? Cornet got disallowed against Chelsea earlier in the season. Should that have stood?
No, listen. I'll admit that.
It's all roundabouts, isn't it? It's all swings and roundabouts. You know, if that would have been given, it would have been a draw, wouldn't it? So, you know, how much worse off would Chelsea have been? I'm trying to work out in my head quick maths. You know, if they get that penalty, would they be 2 points better off? You know, it's margins like that make the difference, I suppose. But if it means that you'd still be on level points, then who really cares?
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that one. Was he offside? Not off?
No, that's when Mendy went down. Yeah.
Yeah, it was given as a foul on Mendy earlier in the season, Chelsea West Ham, and it just wasn't. It just simply wasn't. And I guess that is a good example to because obviously it's Chelsea West Ham again. That's a good example to say the classic. Oh, it evens out throughout the course of the season. The reality is, it doesn't. There's no way every team can have exactly the right amount of.
It's not exact, but it is sort of, I don't know, like you can say there's a bit of luck. Sometimes luck is running your way, but it's sort of one season you'll get more. You'll get the plus.
Yeah.
Plus, like positive. One season you'll get the negative.
Yeah.
It does happen like that. Sort of. Obviously, I've seen a ton of this. It's mainly Arsenal fans. There's controversy. It's biased. They don't want Arsenal to win the league.
No, that's
what a load of crap. Like, what a load of crap. Like,
I think every club has that sort of chip on their shoulder that thinks the world's against them. You know, I've said it a million times. Jamie, you've said it, and Reece, you've probably said it at some point as well.
We're booing the Premier League song, so we're proper in that.
It'd be interesting.
Get a VAR decision, we're getting relegated. So.
It would be interesting to see if there is a stat table on where you would be if every VAR decision you got went your way. That would be interesting because I don't really see it changing much. I think they said at the halfway point this season, like it was 48 calls of VAR and 42 were right. So I think that like there's always going to be, even if you get it down to the rule to a T, I think there's going to be what your opinion is. And I think even though people don't like that, but they're quite quick to offer their opinion on what it should be anyway. So I think that's a big element of it. I think personally, just stick it down to a T. If the rule says it's hit his hand or whatever, then fine, that's a penalty. I agree. The West Ham think that was a penalty, but it'd be interesting to see how many teams where they would be in the league. I wouldn't see it that much. I honestly doubt Southampton would be in fourth place.
So I think they have done a VAR if how like VAR decisions have impacted you in sort of the season, and to be honest, it really isn't. It doesn't change that much.
Liverpool were the top. I think that was a couple of weeks ago, but Liverpool were at the top of that. I have had the most decisions go their way, I think was the stat.
Oh, it's clearly broken.
Liverpool, I told you.
Yeah, so there's tons of sort of decisions. I think I've just quickly gone on. I've got ESPN here. I don't know how true this is, but the sort of +4 is Liverpool, Fulham, and Brentford. That's the best in the league. And the worst is actually a -6 for Brighton.
Wow.
So with sort of Brighton could be 6 points better off if VAR weren't in play.
Well, they're doing well as it is.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with things like that, like it nets off eventually. But I think it's more if it's a foul or not is opinion. If it's handball or not is slight opinion. Some are more obvious than others. Offside should be the straightforward one that's always right. And that's the problem I have with the sort of refereeing decisions. It's a blatant rule whether you're off or not, and it's been overcomplicated.
There are a lot of factors. It is an overcomplicated rule, isn't it? And you're trying to control every factor. Well, if he's here and then he's moved here and then he's moved here, that's such an impossible thing to do. Like, it'd be interesting if they can actually redo the rule where there is just a genuine he's offside. But I suppose the argument for that is there'd never be any goals. Yeah. So it's a real hard rule to get. But I do get you though. You think that should be the one rule in VR that should be right every time, I suppose.
Yeah, and to that point as well, I think to defend referees and look for viewers of the podcast, fun fact, all three of us are actually qualified, FA qualified referees, by the way. I'm not just wearing a ref shirt for the fun of it. So we are qualified to judge on this, but I think you've just got to, going back a step, just quickly before we move on, you've got to be able to create consistency. And the problem is we have had examples of where we've tried to make a rule collectively as a league, like the handball rule, where if it touches your hand, it is a foul. And the problem is we're bringing that in. You try and get rid of the subjectivity, but we all saw, and they've changed it since, that actually made it worse because you got some absolutely ridiculous examples of where his hand's by his side. So I don't think there is a perfect solution. And I do think, fans and pundits will probably moan either way. But I do think the bottom line is the standards need to improve. And there does need to be a bit more consistency, particularly on offside decisions that are clearly undisputable. But it is what it is. Refs, all three of us are qualified. So Premier League, give us a shout if you need some better refs. But now it is time to move on. We obviously started with the Arsenal Brentford in terms of them dropping points. And what this means is now that the big game this week on Wednesday, which is Arsenal versus Man City, becomes a little bit more juicy. So, Jamie, I will come to you first as I guess City, well, I don't want to say the team in form, but, you're off the back of a win, maybe feeling a bit better than Arsenal. Are you confident? How do you see this game playing out? Is this the title decider on Wednesday?
I was thinking it was going to be. I did say, I think it was before the Everton game, I said this will be the title decider. Because Arsenal started dropping points, it's not as much the title decider title decider as if Arsenal won both their games, and let's say City and Arsenal both won their games, I think then it would be. But with them starting to show a little bit of vulnerability, because the Everton game, I think they were fairly poor, and then Brentford, I didn't watch all of it. I've watched the highlights and seen what other people have said. Arsenal fans, Brentford fans. Brentford were very good and probably actually did deserve a point at least in that game. Forget the decision on it. So Arsenal aren't, playing that like they had been for the previous 19 games. So that's a slight boost for me, and the fact that we've narrowed it down to 3 points with Arsenal having a game in hand, and we've got to play them twice. So technically, that 6 points could just go, and then we'd be top on goal difference. I'm still not that confident though on Wednesday, because the first half against Villa we looked very good. We had that point to prove after the whole allegations, but when it came down to the sort of second half, we showed a bit of complacency. We showed a bit of vulnerability again, and Villa punished us with 1 goal, which I think was more our own undoing, but it's happened too many times. And Arsenal will punish us. Like the front four will sort of be all over that, especially with the sort of pace they've got. So I would actually probably take a draw now. That's probably it, and then we'd have to win at the Etihad kind of thing. That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Wow. I'm not sure I've ever heard you say you'd be happy with a draw. That is, I guess that's a compliment to Arsenal. Reese, I know you've been probably a more pessimistic Arsenal fan. How do you see this game playing out? Because this is a cup final. This is, this is big.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say pessimistic. I'd say realistic, and ignore the fact I'm wearing sky blue. But
it's Lazio, not City, for those fans who about to lose their shit.
So I don't think this is the title decider. I think Arsenal going to Villa is a much more important game, because I think there's a whole mentality thing that I've said 100 times. It is a mentality game. City have it, Arsenal do not. It was prime example when they went to Everton. New manager, lunchtime kickoff, a crowd that's famous for getting in your face. Look at that performance they put in. That was complete dross, absolute rubbish. And they consider go, Everton nullified the game. That was tactical inept then. If you can't go, it was poor. And then you could look at their faces at the end of the game. They look shocked. What happens? They play Brentford last week, a game which they have to bounce back. If you can't bounce back when you have to bounce back, what are you going to do? They're not. It's poor, and they get a draw. They scraped a draw. In reality, they can say all 3 points all they like. They've only papered over the cracks. If we're going away to Villa in October, completely different ball game, win comfortably. But we're going away to Villa where we have to start getting results, and we're going at a lunchtime where Unai Emery has Arteta's number. Again, the crowd are going to be up for it. All that hard work against City, whatever they get, could be completely undone there. That's the more important game, and that's not me disrespecting City. I think City are going to go and steamroll it because they have that momentum now to do it. It's just craziness. Arsenal really have to up their game on Wednesday, and I don't think they can cope with the pressure. Just watch our podcast from last year about the top four. I said they wouldn't be able to cope with the pressure because they don't have that mentality to do it in that stage. It's not a criticism. It's just they're not ready for the title yet, and that's just what it is.
I think,
but the game is massive for Arsenal's general mentality if they want to win the title.
I think on your point, and look, we all said it. We did the podcast at the end of last season. We said Arsenal are a momentum team. When it's going well, it's going great. But as soon as they lose a game, heads go down. And every bit of evidence this season, until these last 2-3 weeks, has actually suggested otherwise. Arsenal, despite what you say, Reece, Arsenal have come on leaps and bounds this season. They have bounced back when 1-0 down at home and away. That's not an Arsenal, that's not been a characteristic of an Arsenal side for 10 years plus. So I do think they have shown a lot this season that they are moving forward, regardless if they don't win the title.
They've improved, yeah. They've become a top 4 team. They've gone toe to toe with some of the better teams have done. I'm saying it's improvement, but next year they now need to build on that and go, okay, when we've got to go, when you know they're going to be in our face, we're going to have to go and win. That's their next step. That's all it is. It's not a criticism. It's just how, you know, coaching and general football should work.
And to your point, let's play devil's advocate for your point. If you go and beat Man City at home when you're out of form for a few games, you've got to then start to sit here and go, this seriously could be our year, because to go and beat Man City at home would be such a step forward for Arsenal. It would make it even more impressive, the fact you're sort of out of form. I do think it's such a big opportunity for you guys, and I will go as far as to say this game will define the title. And what I mean by that is, if City go and win here, it's done. I don't care what anyone says. If City go to your ground when you're in bad form and go and beat you, to go level on points, obviously you're with a game in hand. For me personally, I think it's done. Your confidence, your momentum, everything will be shot. City will be absolutely buzzing. However, if you go and beat them, why can't you go and win the league?
Because it goes to Villa. And I think as well, our games, I know City have a better squad. Our games, when you look at, again, the mentality side of some of them games, they've still got to go to Anfield away. Regardless of how Liverpool are playing right now, those fans are going to be like, oh, Arsenal coming to town. Let's have it. Okay, they're going to be up for that. They've still got, I mean, Newcastle away is a bit of a different one near the end of the season, different time to last year, because they're probably playing Newcastle. They're happy where they are. You know, they're all exhausted because they've had such a great season. Wolves at home on the last game, different game. They'll probably be well safe by then. That's absolutely fine. It's going to Villa away that's going to be the problem. It's going to be, I can't remember who else we've got to play now. You know, we've got Palace at home. That might be a different game, depending on where Palace go in the table. We've still got Southampton at home, who, yes, they've been terrible, but if we've got to play them when they need the 3 points, we've proven that we tend to give them the 3 points. So it's how that run of fixtures goes, and I just don't think them particular away games like Villa are in our favour.
I don't know. I still think you've come on a lot. I know, you know, you've beat Spurs. You know,
Massive
Spurs.
stride.
Everyone
Yeah,
saw
gone toe
Spurs.
to toe. Gone, like I said, it's an improvement. Gone toe to toe, but people are going to be so upset if they start to drop to third or whatever. It's not. Top 4 was the aim. That's all it needs to be. You know, it's just, yeah, it's disappointing when you go toe to toe with everyone else and you let it slide. But it's a massive improvement. It's nothing to be disheartened about. It's just realistic.
Well, Jamie, you know, well, I'm going to make the case for Arsenal here, but you have gone away. Sorry, Arsenal have gone away to Spurs, beat them 2-0, unreal performance. City didn't do that. They lost. You've gone to Chelsea away. You look bloody good. You beat us. You know, City did beat us, but didn't look great. Is this a City team that has lost a bit of, I don't know what you call it, you know, a bit of their edge? Because that is a big case for Arsenal here.
We have, and I said it in the summer when we got rid of Jesus and Sterling. I thought we just lost that little bit of pace, and I do feel like that's something we are missing attacking wise. And I think that showed a little bit at the start of the season, especially when you had Mahrez not in as good form as he is in now. So there is a little bit, and I do actually think there's been problems, and Pep's come out and said this. Some players after the World Cup have not come back with the right attitude. Their heads have dropped when they're on the bench. For example, Cancelo, who's now gone, and another one was Walker. Pep's come out and said Walker's attitude wasn't good enough. And he's now getting back in the side because Pep's probably shown, I don't care who you are, you'll be gone and you won't play if you're going to be like that. I think, to be honest, the whole atmosphere around City, I think after Pep's interview about the whole the Premier League charges, is something that actually could spur us on a little bit. Because what I think I said it to you two in the chat when the Villa game went on. We stopped the ball when there was an injury, and it wasn't a head injury or anything like that. I don't want that, and I'm hoping Pep does this as well. I want the mentality of everyone is against us, so we're going to become a closer knit group, and we're going to go for it. That's what I want us to do, and I think City fans do want that as well. showing up when they showed up before the game, flares going around. You had banners. Whether you agree with the banner of the lawyer or not is a different matter. But it's that mentality is going around City because we know we can still win this title. It's not like when I say I take a draw, it's because I still think we could do better than our. I think if we lose, it's a massive blow. But if we draw, it's still within our grasp and it still puts pressure on Arsenal because we're chasing them. That's why I take the draw, because I feel like the losing is such a big blow to the title race for us. But if we draw, it's not a bad result going away to Arsenal, because Arsenal's home form is phenomenal. And it's something that's actually, even under sort of Wenger, it was something that actually kept them getting fourth place. It's not been something like, people don't like the Emirates. Like, I don't think that Arsenal fans still preferred Highbury to the Emirates kind of thing, but they've been so good at the Emirates. And that's why I'd take a draw, because Arsenal will be up for it. But then when they come back to the Etihad, you'll see City will be really up for it. And I think that's where we'd sort of go, bang, here's 3 points we've taken off you. Then we're going to go and get the rest. So that's where it's like, don't lose it now. Fight for it at the end.
Yeah.
But in terms of City, I think our problem has actually been a bit more defensively as well, because we've had Ake and Akanji being our most played centre-backs, and that's due to injuries. And I think Neville's been going on about it, going, you don't really win a title with Akanji and Ake as your centre-backs, which I think is a bit harsh because they've not been awful. And to be fair, I think Ake's been superb. He's had to play centre-back and left-back, and he's done a great job throughout the whole season. Akanji has come in and done well for I think it was like £12 million price. But I do agree with Neville. He isn't Diaz. He isn't Laporte. He isn't John Stones. But I'm hoping with them playing Villa, they're gonna start playing more, and that's where we can build on. But that's why I don't want us to lose it at the Emirates away, and I'd rather just fight for it the rest. I generally would take a draw now. 1-1, done. Let's get on to the next one. Whoever we've got Forest away. That's not going to be like Reece saying easy game, like tough games. That's going to be a tough game. Forest are going to be absolutely up for it. I can't wait to go. Haven't been in Forest before, so that's a new stadium for me. But they're going to be rocking. So I think both teams have got tough games, but I'd back us to keep going. That's how I see it.
And just to build on Jamie's point there, he said a lot of good things. First of all, he says about, they're criticising like Akanji, etc. at the back. They and centre backs would walk into most teams in that league. So to have them as your backup goes to show their strength and depth. Number one. Number two, Jordan, you said it. Where you said City went away to Stamford Bridge and didn't really play well, but got the 3 points. That's the difference maker. They can go and play games and not play well and get a result. If you look at when Arsenal played poorly, do they win? Draw to Brentford, go away to Everton, lose. Okay, look at it last season, the same aspect. And I know a lot of people said they put in a good performance at Old Trafford early in the season, but they were still pretty poor. Like United, battered 3 goals against them. If United are supposed to be the poorer team and you concede 3 goals in that manner, that's a sign. When Arsenal play poor, they don't seem to win, and that's the big psychological edge I go on about. And it's a strength and depth thing as well. I could say that have Arsenal improved the team in January? No, they've added depth. They've not improved the team. I know it's difficult to do that in January, but sometimes you might have to be a bit bold. I don't know. That's just is what it is. But they're the big contributing factors there, and he's right. And if City get a draw, the psychological edge there of the pressure that goes on Arsenal now, really, we should have gone for the 3 points. It's a huge, huge psychological edge, and I just don't think Arsenal have that psychological edge yet. It's something to learn from, but it's nothing that they have yet.
But in terms of title winning credentials and looking at a team, now look, we can all make the case for Man City. They've been there, they've done it a million times, they've come back from 8-point deficits and so on. So you would still assume that City are favourites, but going back to the previous point, we've not seen this from City. We've not seen Pep lose his shitter players to the point where a world-class player as Cancelo is actually left, not just issues, but left the club. Players
very Ferguson, isn't it? Us against them. Yeah. And it's working.
Ferguson did this. You had the hairdryer incident. He got rid of so many big names.
But I don't think that was mid-season. I don't remember a mid-season situation where all the players were falling out and the manager lost his head and they still won the title. Maybe Ferguson was an anomaly to that, but
I'll be honest, I can't really remember that. But I think Pep's done it for two sort of reasons. It is a bit of mind games as well. Like, it's something Mourinho would do. He would call out certain players to get a reaction out of them. Alex Ferguson would do it. He wouldn't just let players. He called out Pep called out City fans, called out players, called out everything. I saw an article from a United fan going, "Don't criticise Pep and City fans." Ferguson did the exact same thing mid-season. It's something that they do to get a reaction, and that's what they want. They want a reaction. If you're and they want, like, to be fair, like the Emirates have done it without that really, and they've been buzzing this season. Like, I've seen load of videos doing it, sort of like they're flaring before the game, getting up for it, and that's what we want. That's what they want at City, like they did against Villa. That's what Ferguson tried to do as well. So I don't actually think it's a problem. But
we did it with Aubameyang last year. Let him go. Arguably, we were a better side. Pep's not afraid to make the decisions because he's a manager, and that's what managers should be doing. And he could have settled with that same squad. I know we're going to round up, but he could have settled with that same squad. Things might not have changed. Sometimes you just need to give it that jolt, whether it's bringing in a better player or letting a big name go to show what the situation is. And that showed, I'm the boss. Let's get on with this. And the team have rallied as a result, in my opinion.
Cool. Well, before we wrap up, let's give our score predictions or spoilers, if you will, for the game on Wednesday. I will kick things off. I'm going to go for a bold prediction. I'm going to go for 2-1 Arsenal. Makes no sense because they've lost momentum. But I've just got a feeling the whole season will go into that performance on Wednesday. I think Arteta is done tactically well against Pep earlier on. So I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal to make the title race very, very interesting. Jamie, what's your score predictions?
Tactically well against Pep. He slapped us all 3 times.
No. In the FA Cup. FA Cup, it was a 1-0. It was dead even game. Dead even game.
Still beat us.
I want to say a City win because that's what I normally predict. I'll take a 1-1, but I'm going to back City. Let's go for it. 2-1. Haaland is going to get both because I've triple captained him and he deserves to give me something for getting subbed off at half time.
Yeah, you're only about 50 points behind on Rashford on that one. It's not going to happen. Reece, round us off.
1-1, but I fear Arsenal are going to try too hard, which, as silly as that sounds, I think they're going to put too much of their heart into it, and I think that's what might be their downfall.
Well, there you have it. Fully split on the score predictions. At least one of us will be right about the result. As always, thank you for tuning in. Hit us up in the comments. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and obviously YouTube and Spotify. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.